Let's dig in a little deeper on what's been happening with the markets. Joining us right now for that is Mark Grant. He is Chief Global Market Strategist at B. Riley, FBR. And Mark, you've put out a pretty thoughtful piece this morning, kind of trying to fast forward and play ahead how this is going to change our economy. Before we get to that, let's just talk very quickly about the immediate. What Mike had been kind of referencing were these mood swings in the market. And I think you are of the opinion that there are going to be some much deeper issues that the market has to work its way through, that this is not going to be a quick rebound.
That's my viewpoint, Becky. I think we're in someplace between a recession and a depression by the time we get through all this. As Joe pointed out earlier, about 25% of the economy is shut down. That's accurate as far as I'm concerned, but you have to go a little further. There are businesses like the travel business, the hotel business, the restaurant business, and you can go on the shipping lines, the cruise lines, where there's likely to be a very large amount, meaning over 50% of bankruptcies and reorganizations that are facing us. The economy not only is down, but when we do start edging back up, it's not going to be at all like it was before. I can tell you, I spoke with the Department of Defense. They called me about some new initiatives they're thinking of. They wanted my opinion. And I was saying, for instance, the slogan has to change from Make America Great Again to Make America Safe Again. And we can't rely upon these foreign countries for our medical supplies, for other essential things that the United States needs. We need to make them in America, buy them in America, and if they cost a little more, fine, they cost a little more, but we've got to be safe.
That's some major restructuring, and it makes sense what you're laying out. I would anticipate that there are calls from Congress for things like this, having seen some of the trouble we've gotten ourselves into with the supply chain being so disparate in so many industries that you would think would be essential to making sure America's safe. Let me ask you, though, I don't know if you heard our conversation earlier this morning with Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He was pointing out that this is probably going to be problematic for quite a bit longer than most people are anticipating it at this point. I think our kids have finally decided that they're probably not going to go back to school until June at the earliest, if that happens. But what happens in the fall when, if we don't have a cure for this yet, we don't have a vaccine for this yet, which... would we continue to see these issues play out through the fall and next winter, where you have outbreaks again and where you have to shut down school, you have to shut down industries again? How does that kind of play out? Not to mention just how gun-shy Americans may be after living through this and not too eager to go back to some of the things that they used to do pre-crisis.
I did hear Dr. Gottlieb. I thought his comments were very thoughtful about the medical issues. But we have to separate. Obviously, people in their lives and their health come first, but you have to separate the medical outlook from the economic outlook and the market outlook. The outlook for the economy, in my opinion, is none too good. People aren't going to go back to work. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to say, okay, and it's going to be the same again. It's not going to be the same again. Because of the tremendous amount of bankruptcies in many industries and reorganizations, you're going to see people out of work for a lot longer. You're going to see an economy that's going to have to make not only a economic shift, but a psychological shift. As I said, my statement to the Department of Defense was, make America safe again. And that's what we've got to do, which is not only a medical comment, it's an economic comment, so that people can go back to work, stand on their own 2 feet, so that we have, industries that can rehire people. But if you look all across the board, even if you look at what's happening with the banks and some of the other major institutions, they're troubled and they're not going to come back anytime soon. And while the market from day to day, bounces one way or bounces another way because it's very erratic because of the medical situation, I think on a longer term, that it's going to be much more problematic than most people or most institutions think to get back on our own feet and stand there independently.
So, Mark, if that's the case, and this is always the question that we never know, you can never call the bottom, it's always hard, but The question is, if you have cash on the sideline, are you supposed to put it in now, given how far we've gone already? Does it go that much more? Is that what you're arguing? And if it is going, if you have a conviction that it's going to get worse and not better, do you sell now? Which is almost an unheard of thing to suggest. But I asked the question because I think investors are trying to figure out, what they're supposed to do.
Andrew, you're a very thoughtful fellow. No, I don't think the answer is to sell now. I think what you have to consider is the timeline, which I've been writing about in Out of the Box, my commentary. The timeline is from here, which is today, to when we have some kind of medical resolution, and, which of course we don't focus on as much, when we have some kind of economic resolution. My viewpoint with institutions and the individual accounts that I do business with is the following. There's a timeline where you need X amount of cash. You need X amount of money. The problem with cash, I think it's not king, but I think it's the handmaiden to your income stream. So you need some cash so you make sure you don't get yourself in some trouble. But then I think over this timeline, this period of time, slowly, deliberately, nibbling, you put some money back in the stuff, especially in two ways. One, what's in your portfolio that you have a loss in that you can buy at a lower price, or if you own closed-end funds or mutual funds or ETFs, what can you buy at a lower price and get a higher yield if income is your necessity? And two, I think the key is then you look around and you see what industries, for instance, that don't have a lot of leverage, or companies that don't have a lot of leverage, that look at as good opportunities for the future, and you nibble slowly and you add to the portfolio, and I think that's the way to play it.
Mark, Mohammed had similar thoughts. We're going to have him on a little bit later. And there's kind of implicit in all these things are that we may get some kind of a break that we've seen in the stock market eventually that's similar to some of these other horrific breaks, that where we actually hit 50% down. Now, given the backdrop you just gave, it sounds like that wouldn't be out of the question for you. And since we're only down 27, going down another 20 should give people a sell signal if that's really what you believe. And same with Mohammed. I couldn't get him to say sell now either. He just says, oh yeah, it's going to grind lower, blah, blah, blah. It's going to do this. Should you sell? Well, no. So then you're having it both ways. Don't sell, but it's going to get much, much worse. Are we going down 50%? And if so, total, then save another 23%. Don't just sit there with your thumb up your nose. So say what you mean. Is it going down 50 or not?
Okay. One, I think Mohammed, I know him. He's a very bright guy. Two, I'll answer your question absolutely directly. No, I don't think we're going down 50%. Yes, I think that we're going to have some optimism. We could go down another 5 or 10%, and I think that's going to be about it. And the reason I say that is some industries are going to be incredibly impacted.
That would be to the lows we already hit.
Right.
Mark, that would just be a retest of the lows. Okay.
That's correct.
The scenario you painted sounded much, much worse.
No, I'm not painting a much, much worse. I'm just promoting. Okay. I'm just saying it's going to be some worse, and it's going to be far worse for some industries, Joe, and it's going to be not so worse and get better for others. I got it.
If we're going
I responded directly.
Yeah, if we're going to match some of the, all right, I'm going to get Mohammed later. If we're going down to, if we are going down 50, you should sell today. That's my only point.
I don't think we're going down 50.
We still are. Okay.
I don't.
All right. Okay, good.